What's going on, y'all? Give me 1 second. Welcome to just a random fun live stream. I'm here just wanting to hang out. Not that big of a deal. Super duper chill. It's just something I want to kind of discuss, something I think it'd be kind of fun to watch together. It all has to do with some of my favorite interviews in all of Star Wars, the Leonard Maltin George Lucas interviews before the THX copies of the 1995 release of the original trilogy. So we're going to sit here together. We're going to watch this. We can talk about it. I'll chime in randomly. I got my Star Wars Explained shirt on. Go Alex and Molly. Hope y'all are doing good. But yeah, if you're in the chat, please comment. If you want to join, hang out, let me know. All right. So I'm gonna get it put up on the screen. I'm just gonna be here commentating on it and just talking about it. So we got it pulled up right here. Hopefully you hear the audio. Let me know if you don't hear the audio.
Hello, I'm Leonard Maltin. Star Wars may have started out as a mere movie, but it became a phenomenon. It changed the way movies were made and perceived and marketed. It ushered in a new era of science fiction and fantasy and developed a whole new vocabulary of visual special effects. And the man who created the film, who imagined it and then realized it, is here with us today to share some of his memories. George Lucas. George, if I asked you to sum up your feelings.
Probably one of my favorite sets to shoot an interview on. Interesting. Just looks like some boards that have maybe been painted black or maybe some sort of what appears to be I don't even know, curtains. And they just got little lights placed behind them or in them. It's a pretty cool set. I like it. So yeah, no, I thought these interviews were so wicked. When I was growing up, this is where I really learned the word director and what a director was. So it was actually really exciting getting the chance to like watch these for the first time, you know. But yeah, if you're in the chat, please comment. I think we're live on Periscope right now, but it goes directly to Twitter. We're on the Bombadcast Twitter. Oh, it does take me back. Look, we can all enjoy it together. Hold on, let me get it playing.
Today, looking back at the whole Star Wars experience, if I asked you to sum that up in one word, what word first comes to mind?
If there's anything the Star Wars experience has been for me, it's unpredictable.
Yep.
You know, not only in the making of the movies and in creating the stories in the first place, which is the fun of it, is because you don't know where it's going to go, and the making of them were a huge adventure. But the success and all the stuff that's come after it and everything is just.
What's up, Rez? Hope you're doing good.
No idea what's going to happen next.
Let's go all the way back to the beginning. What was the beginning?
I would say probably the original impetus for the whole thing was I used to watch a serial on television called Adventure Theater, and they had Flash Gordon Conquers the Universe on it, and I used to love that. So I went off and wrote my own space opera and developed the story and took it to United Artists that had the first rights to it. They said no, they didn't want it.
All right, just real quick, while we're all here, I've been drinking some water and watching this. What's up, Rez? This is like such an aesthetic. I mean, look at that. My hair's not done right today. I got kind of George Lucas-y curly, wavy hair, but it's not done right. But this is like, I don't know. I've always, you know, people say like usually when I have a friend actually who. The older he gets, the more handsome he is. George Lucas is one of those examples because I don't think he's particularly that good looking of a guy in the 70s when he made, and the 80s when he made, I guess, the original trilogy. But when it came to this, that's a stud right there. He looks like a freaking lion. Like he looks, look at him, like partially gray, turtleneck, blazer, kind of. Just like a nice sports coat on, big chillin'. We don't know what we'll see what kind of chairs are sitting in a second. I had a picture out when I see this image. I picture he's in like a giant, like beautiful, huge red, dark red, like lounge chair. So yeah, he is like a salt and pepper lion. It is the black turtleneck. I usually wear a black turtleneck too around Christmas time, and I guess I'm trying to channel this look. I don't know. Let's get back into the video though.
Because I just finished American Graffiti and they said no, they didn't want it. and finally took it to 20th Century Fox, and Al Nye Jr. said, "I'm interested." He said, "I don't understand this, but I loved American Graffiti, and whatever you do is okay with me, because otherwise I don't think it would have ever gotten done, because it was crazy, spaceships and Wookiees and robots, and it was just unlike anything that had ever been seen before."
Tell me about that first script. Now, did you try to tell the whole story in one script?
Well, at that point, it wasn't the whole story. I wrote a script, and the script was very ambitious. It told a very large story. When I finished it, I realized that it was way too big to make into a movie. So I took the first part of it, sort of the first act, and I said, I'll make the movie about this. And I had to expand on it and move it around, play with it a little bit. But I basically then focused on that as being the film. And I said, someday, if I ever get a chance, maybe I'll make these other things, the rest of it, the other 2/3 into a movie. But right now, that's just going to have to go on the shelf, and I'll leave it there. And so that's really how the first project came to pass. The other part of it is in order to write that first script, I had to write a backstory.
Okay, so the backstory part, this was interesting. See, when I was growing up, when you're at such a young age, you don't think about how all these things are so different, and they're not occurring at the same exact time. When you're like 5, you think everything happens at once. Like when I was 5, it was the year was 2000. I had a Game Boy, an original Game Boy. Didn't think anything of it. You're 5 years old. I was playing Pokemon, which came out 5 years before that. Didn't think anything of it. We had these VHSs at home, the THX VHSs. Loved them, watched them, didn't think anything about it. And same goes for okay, Boomer. Can't stand you, Rez. Oh, that's awesome. No, yeah, so we're watching these, and like at 5 years old, you don't think anything about all this stuff. And like we had the prequels out at the same exact time. It was a weird conglomeration of all these different things, but I always thought it was just one big thing, of course, in regards to Star Wars. So like when he's talking about this next sequence, I never thought about it. You don't think about it now, but when you're watching this, you're like, man, that's so fantastic. Like he kind of alludes to what he's writing and what he's working on. And this came out in 95, but yeah, no, I'm going to go be a boomer, and I'm going to play through some more of this. We can talk about it in a second. Hope everyone's enjoying this video. I don't know if you had a chance to rewatch it or if you've ever seen them, but if you haven't seen them, they're fantastic. Maybe watch them without me next time. But no, hopefully if you haven't seen it, we can all kind of get to talking about it and watching it now. So I'm going to get it back playing.
Story about where Darth Vader came from, how the kids evolved, his wife, how Ben related to all that, how the Emperor came to power. And that ended up being the basis for the projects that I'm working on now.
You have a go-ahead on the script. You're revising it as you're preparing now to shoot the movie. How do you begin to prepare to shoot this movie?
I failed to mention Leonard Maltin's also look at that pause. Leonard Maltin's also pretty handsome. Let's be honest here. For everyone that's joining the video, we got a lot of people in the video right now. Hope y'all are enjoying it. We're watching the Leonard Maltin THX VHS box set interviews from the original trilogy. Faces, I guess, box set, which is the one I grew up with. So let's go through this together and enjoy it. It's a fantastic interview, and I'm gonna try to make that face. No, George Lucas is a stud in this, though. Let's be honest. All right, let's go through this.
Went around, and there were no departments at the studios, no one to do this. So I had to sort of build up from scratch my own special effects company in the process of starting this whole thing.
How do you find people? How do you find the right people to do that kind of thing and to invent things, which is what they had to do?
There was a small group of people that had done special effects. Some guys who worked in commercials doing the Pillsbury Doughboy and this, so there was maybe a few dozen people in Hollywood that actually had
so
some
real
experience.
Quick,
they're mostly college.
While we're all here, how many of y'all think Phil Tippett is 100% going to come back to do the Mando season 3? Because he was visiting ILM. I think what was it, almost like 2 or 3 weeks ago. He has a photo with Doug Chang on Twitter. I would love to see Phil Tippett come back. And I don't know, he's just one of those incredible minds that I guess Star Wars might need right now, just for special effects reasons. And I would love to see a legendary come back and work on Mando 3. He might even be working on Mando 2. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, he's talking about ILM right here, and I just felt like sharing that.
College students, they're mostly very young. I think the average age of ILM when it started was like 24. It's the average age, and so there are a lot of kids that were like 19, 20 years old.
Tell me about some of the casting decisions.
What I would do is I would take the various contenders for the various roles and I'd mix them around and have them work ensemble. Because what I was trying to do is see how they all look together and work together as a group, not as individuals. And I think that was a very important part about the casting is I cast a group. I didn't cast one person, one person, one person. I saw how they all worked together and then chose it that way.
What was the most serendipitous bit of casting?
Probably Harrison. Fred Roos, who was helping with my casting, was a good friend of Harrison's, and so he had him. He was a carpenter, and he sort of had him. I mean, he'd been an actor and he'd been a contractor.
To kind of get on my high horse here, these are the ones I grew up with. So much better than the special editions. I'm just saying. If you haven't yet, I have an episode, or we, Bombadcast, me and Jerry, have an episode that dropped yesterday with Hello Greedo. We talk about the special editions. Go check it out. But yeah, I prefer this version when Han runs down the hallway and the stormtroopers are all kind of, conglomerated there and they turn around and shoot at him. I like that way more than the awful, 40 or 50 stormtroopers that are just completely stagnant there. So I dig this a lot more. But yeah, let's get back into the interview.
He was working as a carpenter, fixing their offices up. And as I was casting everybody, we said, well, we'll start doing these tests. And I said, well, we're short one Han Solo. I've only found 4. I need 5 because I have 5 of everything else. And so I just said, well, Harrison, do you want to do this? You want to stand and sort of read some parts against these other parts so we can get through this thing? And he said, yeah. And he started reading them. He read them better than anybody else did.
What was the toughest part of making Star Wars?
Well, there was a lot of drama through the whole thing. It was a very tough film to make. It was a fairly low budget film. It was a $10 million movie at a time when most movies the big time movies were $20, $30 million.
How much of that went to effects?
Well, $2 million went to effects. There weren't very many effects. And I think the toughest part was when I finished shooting, I came back to the United States. I had no editor. I had to reassemble the entire movie of what had been cut, start from scratch. I went down to ILM, and they'd spent $1 million out of the $2 million. We were about 5 months away from release of the movie, and they didn't have any shots done. And I was panicked because I had nothing. I had no movie. I had no effects. I had a big mess on my hands.
When did you know it was working, that it was turning into a phenomenon with the public?
It was, it wasn't really until it
To be honest with you, this is the most
came out and started.
Handsome looking George Lucas ever. So yeah, I have to throw that out there. He's a stud. Look at him. Are you kidding me? Look at the dude. So yeah, no, this is such a good interview. I've read so many books on the making of Star Wars, everything from, Empire of Dreams to these videos. The story doesn't get old. I mean, the fact that the whole world was against him during all this is just such an incredible thing. I don't know. It really does blow me away how he even got all this made. And, it really makes me want to watch A New Hope. The despecialized versions, I have you. For me, Jerry's different, but I have a copy of it. Harmony T Specialized. If you haven't yet, go check it out. It's really good. All right. Back to the video.
It was in the theaters. I was still, even the day it came out, and Laddie called me and says, it's a hit. The first 3 performances sold out, and it's going to be giant. I said, look, all science fiction films do well in the first week. Wait until the 3rd week, and then let's see what happens. So I was always the pessimist.
Star Wars has come out. A success, I think it's fair to say, beyond your expectations.
Yeah, definitely.
At what point did you receive a commitment or an urging to do a sequel? And did you immediately say yes, or was there any hesitation on your part to do it?
Well, it didn't really happen that way, because what I did when I was writing it, I wrote one movie. and then I couldn't do the whole movie.
See, now
'Cause it
from
was
this
way too
angle, he's not as handsome. But the other angle he was. I can't figure it out. Also, this is such a aesthetic right here. Let me see. It's this shot of Leonard Maltin. Like, look at that. Not his look, but like the fuzziness of the VHS, I guess, converter, or it's like professional, but still looks like crap. I love that. I love that. We need to try to emulate that again. I mean, of course they have decent looking like VHS emulators, but like, I guess we're just going to have to take out the old VHS cameras and shoot to that and then convert it. It's a lot of work, but it's such a nice look. Maybe this could be the Bombadcast aesthetic for when Celebration comes around. I don't know. Just an idea. All right, getting back to the interview.
An urging to do a sequel, and did you immediately say yes, or was there any hesitation on your part to do it?
Well, it didn't really happen that way, because what I did when I was writing it, I wrote one movie, and then I couldn't do the whole movie because it was way too big. The first draft was, it had too much stuff in it. It was way too big. It couldn't possibly be done. So I took a deep breath and said, okay, I'm going to have to take all these great ideas. And that part I'm just going to have to cut out. And I'll just do what it was then really the first act, and I'll expand this and make this into a movie. So I did that. But then as a writer, you create this whole thing, and it's, sitting there on the shelf. So as soon as the film was successful, there wasn't any question in my mind that I would immediately go on and do the rest of them so I could finish it.
What to you is the biggest difference, overall difference, between film number 1 and film number 2?
Well,
that's actually an interesting question, because I never thought about that, because there is a significant difference. To me, whenever I watch Empire and A New Hope, I guess the biggest difference is, I keep saying aesthetically. I'm sorry. It's the look of Empire Strikes Back looks so much different, and I know it's a different director, probably a different DOP, but like the look itself is just so much better. I'm a huge fan of how a lot of it's shot, a lot more push-ins. It almost looks a little bit more like a Spielberg movie than a George Lucas movie. I don't know. Now, I like that he looks like he's mad at me. He looks like he's like, you just let me talk. But yeah, no. I think Empire is a cleaner movie. If you watch the opening to A New Hope, special editions, the Disney Plus editions, the original editions, it almost looks very college movie. But like Empire comes out and like everything looks super sleek, and then it's weird. Return of the Jedi kind of comes out, and it's the combination of both that sleekness and that kind of how would you say, more college film, handheld looking, not really handheld, but the feel of it itself is very different than what we have with A New Hope and what we have with Empire. It's like a combination of both with Return of the Jedi. All right, get back to this video. Hope everyone's enjoying the stream.
The biggest problem I was grappling with in film number 2 is the fact that it's the middle act of a 3-act play.
Now, some people find it a darker film than the first.
Well, it is a darker film because in the first act, you introduce everybody. The second act, you put them in the worst possible position they can ever get into in their lives, and it's and they're in a black hole, never able to get out. And in the third act, they get out. That's just, again, that's drama. That's the way it works. You don't have an exuberant, happy second act.
What was the biggest technological advance between the making of 1 and the making of 2?
Well, there wasn't really too much of a technological. We refined what we had primarily, but there wasn't any giant technology. The major technological break was in 1, and that was using motion control cameras and that sort of thing to allow the ships to be able to move freely and that sort of thing. That was the big advance. Everything after that was we were able to do more stop motion. I was able to do a lot more things. They weren't really technological advances, but I was able to get a lot more into stop motion, which I couldn't do before, and generally have a bigger scope to things. And
so that's actually a really good point. I'd failed to think about that. The fact that Empire is almost kind of lax on special effects, except for the asteroid scene. I think that's really where they push the boundaries. I know he's not admitting it here, but like that asteroid sequence is just incredible with the the monster that comes up the crater and everything. I don't know. It's one of those. It is one of those moments where you kind of watch it and it's not as a visually shocking as what you get with A New Hope with all the special effects. This one's a good combination of both, and I really do think that's why Empire is probably a favorite as well. It's so grounded. Everything looks super real, but it's not. It's not like the big trench run sequence. It's not like Jabba's sail barge or Jabba's palace sequence. It's not too much special effects. But yeah, I'm gonna get back to the video now. Having fun with y'all. Hope everyone's enjoying this. Got a couple people with the stream still just hanging out. This often. Okay. Well, we're back. Sorry. Think the internet messed up for a second. We're gonna get back to watching this.
I could do it before. So if the first film was a technological challenge to get ships to fly in space with a lot of that movement, the second one was to do a stop motion movie.
How did you choose or get together with Frank Oz to be Yoda?
When I created Yoda, I said I want him to be really, really small, but not 6 feet. I want him to be about 18 inches, 2 feet high.
That was an
and
elevator.
To do that, I
guess
said,
in the middle of the
what
interview.
am I going to do, and how am I going to get a character, and what am I going to do? Whenever I'm creating one of these films, I mean, I have my imagination, and if I were a novelist, I could just write it, and I wouldn't have to think about it. But I write it, and then I say, well, now how am I going to do this? How am I going to pull this off? And I decided to do it as a puppet. I thought that was the best. And so I'd known Jim Henson, and I went to Jim and said, do you want to do this? Because I really asked Jim to do it first, and he said, well, I'm busy, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I'm making a movie and all, and I really can't, but how about Frank? Frank's the other half of me and everything. And I said, well, that would be fantastic.
It's an extraordinary creation.
I think it was exciting for everybody because it was the idea of taking, and Jim was very interested in doing realistic characters that weren't really Muppets, and so we all really worked together on it.
Tell me about how you first met and worked with John Williams.
I had known Steven Spielberg for a long time up to this point, and we were talking about the film real early on when I was writing the script, and I said, I want a classical score. I want the Korngold kind of feel about this thing. It's an old-fashioned kind of movie, and I want that grand soundtrack that it used to have on movies. And he said, the guy you got to talk to is John Williams. He did Jaws. I love him. He's the greatest composer ever lived. You got to talk to him. And so I did. And it was really Steven that introduced us and recommended him. I talked to him and said, okay. And he said he was interested. So he did it, and he's a dream to work with. He's a most wonderful collaborator.
Didn't you at first want him to use existing classical music? Is that true?
No. I had written it to certain pieces of music. I write to music. So when I'm writing a scene, I have the music there, and I'm writing it to the music. And then
Daily Harvest.
And then in a lot of cases, we'll use that same music as a temp track. So there was temp tracks of classical music in the score, and with Johnny, you can say, look, I want something that feels exactly like this. You understand the emotion here and the emotion there and what's going on. He said, yeah. And then he will take that and he will come up with his own composition and his own themes, which are uniquely, Star Wars themes in this case. But he'll give it that same emotional thrust that was in the classical piece. He knows exactly what I'm talking about, and he's really conscientious in trying to get the director's vision on the screen.
What kind of feedback did you get to that incredible climactic scene in Empire when we all learn who Darth Vader really is?
I was nervous about it, but in the end, I didn't get much of a reaction out of it. I mean, people, were curious about whether it was true or not, and I purposely left it so that it would be ambiguous, so that you wouldn't really know, and people would sort of debate it for the next. I had 2 more years or more to. I wanted people to sort of debate whether it's
Thank
true
you,
or not
Rez.
true or like sort of thing.
Well, George, as you know, people are just nuts for these movies, and to learn so much about them and what went into them and what inspired you is a real treat.
No, thank you. It's fun. I hope that people continue to enjoy the films because it's nice to think of them as being timeless.
By the time you got to episode 3.
Okay, wait. So, I love that. Thank you, Rez, for letting me know my microphone was off. Appreciate it. Great part right there. The idea of I'm glad to see these movies are timeless. You're not wrong. Here I am breaking down your interview with Leonard Maltin on Twitter, and people are still joining in and hanging out and wanting to watch these things. So, George, you've done something special. But I'm excited to hear what Leonard Maltin wants to say about episode 3 of Star Wars, which is a interesting, I guess, statement since it's not really true. But anyway, thank you, Rez. Appreciate it, bud.
Episode 3. Did anything from public feedback or from your own second thoughts change your vision of what the 3rd installment should be? Or is it the way you thought it always would turn out?
No, it's pretty much the way it was always thought to come out. I mean, I had to make certain changes of things because in the original screenplay, the Ewoks were Wookiees, and Chewbacca really wasn't the co-pilot. So, so when I did the first film, I love the Wookiee so much. I said, well, I got to get a Wookiee in here, even though, because those may never get done. So I took the Wookiee out of the battles and made him the co-pilot. Because originally they were sort of a primitive race of people who couldn't fly or couldn't do anything. And because that was the whole point. And so I had to figure out how I was going to do Wookiees. And I basically cut them in half and called them Ewoks. But it was
Wait.
A lot of that stuff is all.
An Ewok is essentially just a Wookiee, but cut in half. That's a cool statement. Dang, I never heard that one before. That's a new one. Maybe I just don't remember it. That's awesome.
All there, but in the original, it was a ground battle and an air battle all together.
How did you ever think of Jabba the Hutt?
Well, Jabba, it's one of those things. I needed a gangster. I mean, he was in the first film, and in the in the special edition, we're putting back a lot of material with Jabba in the very first one that we did, and he was in that. He's this big gangster, it wasn't until a little later that we actually, because we couldn't do that sequence because we didn't have the time. But when we got to the third one, and Jabba appeared, then we did this whole thing of designing that one as a big kind of repulsive character, and we had a lot of designers coming up with various versions of Jabba the Hutt.
Was it a conscious decision to move a good chunk of the action for part 3 into an earthly outdoor terrain? It's so different from anything you see in the first 2 films.
Well, it was. I'm very conscious of the environments, and I try to have at least 3 environments in a movie, and I try to have them as different as possible. And then from movie to movie, I try to have the environments as different as possible. In the first movie, we were on a sand thing. It was all kind of a brown color. And so then on the second one, I put in the snow, and it was all kind of white. And then I did the green, swampy kind of thing.
That's one thing I like about the prequels and the sequels, actually. They've really stuck to making sure all the environments are so different from each other. For example, TLJ does it really well with, you get aboard the Radis, but you also not only get aboard the Radis, you get Octo, you get Canto Bite, then you get Crate, and I really do think. Oh, and then you kind of get Jakar at the beginning, but like most in TLJ, it's all very different environments. The Force Awakens got Jakku, you got Star Killer, you've got aboard the Kylo Ren ship. You've got Maz's planet. You got Dakar, and then you get Star Killer's exterior and interior. So and Octo, but Octo doesn't really count. And then with oh wow, now looking at The Rise of Skywalker, which I'm gonna watch later today. Hopefully, once I'm done doing this, I might sit down and actually watch it. Trust me, I've seen it 8 times. I know it, but watch it at home for the first time. Yeah, trying to think, man, The Rise of Skywalker goes all over the place because you got Exegol, you got the place where they met as well. Let's think. There is a lot of different places. So yeah, well, I don't know. They're all kind of familiar. At least in the original trilogy, it's all very different. Except for Tatooine appearing twice. But anyway, enough of me. Back to this.
And the third one, you're sort of, what can you do in terms of environments? You have to shoot it somewhere on this Earth. Unfortunately, we can't go somewhere else. So, a forest was really about the only thing I had left. And originally, even with the Wookiees, the Wookiees lived in a forest environment. They lived in the same kind of tree houses, and they did that. They were sort of Earth people. There's a whole motif of like Luke's planet. Everybody is brown. There's lots of browns and earth tones. Everything is earth tones and light tan, light brown, flesh color. It's all very warm tones. And then when you go to the Death Star, it's all black and white. Everything is black and white all the time. It's all very harsh and contrasty and black and white. And I use that a lot. And so in the large arc, it was the same way. It was, where the Wookiees lived, it was all sort of green and brown. I added that in. It sort of was a motif that went from sort of a tan brown to a green brown. And so that sort of still exists in the actual film. It's there's a whole color and environment motif that goes through, and the good guys are all the earth colors, and the bad guys are all colorless.
Your many, many fans, and there are many avid fans, as you know, of the Star Wars trilogy,
Yep.
are wondering about the next 3 films.
Here we go.
And why is it taking so long? Why does it take so long? And how long will it take?
Well, I'm working on the next 3 films, and I am in the process of writing the 3 screenplays now, and it takes a while to write the screenplays. To write the first Star Wars took me about 2 years.
If I'm not mistaken, didn't he write the Phantom Menace and make it, and then he's like, "All right, Attack of the Clones." If I'm not mistaken, I thought it was like he did all of it, and then all of a sudden he was like, "Okay, let's do the next part." Like in the beginning documentary, I'm pretty sure that's how it ends, is him doing episode 2. I thought so. Anyway, all right, going to finish this interview off.
Years, so I'm writing 3 scripts at once. It won't take that long, but it takes a long time to prep them, and hopefully we'll have one finished for 98. If not, it'll be 99. But we're doing all 3 at once. I'm writing all 3 at once, and the first 3 are based on the backstory that relates to where everybody came from, how they got there, what their relationships are.
Has this backstory been in your head all along from the inception? Or...
Yeah. I had to do the backstory in order to write the first 3. I had to know where Darth Vader came from. I had to know what his relationship to Luke was. I had to know how Ben Kenobi figured in all of this. And I had to realize that I had to understand that there were twins, and the whole arc of the story in the 3 that are out there now is really the redemption of Anakin Skywalker. And so the first 3 are really, that I'm writing now, are really about Anakin Skywalker. So now you have a redemption of somebody that you don't really even know. He's just always in a black suit. But you don't know how he fell from grace and the trauma that went through to get him to there. And then his son brings him back. But it's, and the real story hasn't even been told yet.
What would it take to persuade you to go back onto a soundstage and direct a film yourself?
Well, I'd like to direct again. I mean, I'm very interested and still in directing. And there is a possibility I may direct one of the next Star Wars. If I do direct again, it'll be the first one so that I can set the stage and the.
Now, I don't know if anyone can educate me on this particular, but I forget that he like asked Ron Howard. I don't think he ever asked Steven, or if he did ask Spielberg, it was like quickly denied. I don't know. He don't think he could ever do it justice. But if you think about it, it's very interesting only because this whole idea of like him not directing the prequels, I wonder how different they would have been, if they would have been better or worse. Now looking back at it, my generation has grown up, and I was really young when the prequels came out. But when my generation's growing up, it seems to be that everyone really likes the prequels. But this is very interesting because this is, I guess, before he ever agreed to really directing it. So yeah, super interesting comment.
And you know how everything works for the other directors to follow.
But as we approach the millennium, we can look forward to the prequel trilogy.
Definitely.
How cool is that? That is such an awesome, I guess, video. I really do love enjoying. I really do love enjoying. I really do enjoy watching these interviews. And to kind of end it off, we're gonna play one of my favorite trailers from this era. It's the one that I think played before these VHSs. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. The THX one last time. It's the doc. It was like the little trailer that would play before each one. Let me get it pulled up real quick. Oh, it's awesome. All righty, y'all. We're going to end the stream after this. Thank you so much, everyone that joined. We had a bunch of people in the chat at one point, but I'm very happy. Rez, if you're still here, thank you. Yeah, thank y'all so much for taking your time today and watching this. This is just a chill random live stream. Just felt like doing this real quick onto Twitter, where a lot of my family and my people are at. My Twitter fam I'm referring to. Anyway, let's get this rolling. And once this is over, the stream will be over. So have a great day and stay bombad.
For those who remember, for those who will never forget, and for a whole new generation who will experience it for the very first time. The Star Wars Trilogy. Three timeless adventures that changed movie making forever. Now, the entire trilogy, digitally mastered in THX for the ultimate in sound and picture quality. This will be your last chance to own the original version of Star Wars, the George Lucas masterpiece that launched the Star Wars trilogy. The Force is forever, for all generations. The original Star Wars trilogy on video, one last time.